Hey guys, me and Mir are back to talk about some more of the recent Street Fighter 6 testing that Mir did when he traveled down to EGX to play Street Fighter 6. So for today's video, we're actually going to talk about modern controls. This is going to be kind of like a revisited video because a lot of the tests that Mir did was on modern controls as well, but we're splitting it up into this video. And we want to talk about it because there's a lot of conflicting reports, a lot of misinformation actually, and now Mir was actually there testing it, recording it, and now we can get some confirmations because modern controls is a very huge topic. There's a lot of concerns about it, and it's a very big change from previous Street Fighter games.
Yeah, I mean, obviously modern controls were put into the game by Capcom to try and appeal to a more casual audience, to give an alternative way of playing the game without having to learn all the complicated motions and such. But a lot of the people that play the game competitively kind of immediately notice that there could be a problem, right? We don't want a repeat of that Street Fighter 4 version for the DS or whatever it was, where you had like easy N-tiers, easy charge moves with no charge. That's obviously not what we want.
Right.
So we had another look at modern controls, as we mentioned, and I can say immediately that there's some advantages for sure, but there's some very distinct flaws. Unfortunately, to explain these flaws, we have to go through how the system works, just very, very briefly.
Okay, I'll go through as quickly as I can. So normally, guys, with the classic controls, it's just like you remember from Street Fighter 5, 6 attack buttons, 3 punches, 3 kicks. But with modern controls, they're now narrowing it down. There's only 3 attack buttons on modern controls. There's light attacks, medium attacks, and heavy attacks. And there's a 4th button called special. So basically, if you press a special button and a direction, you can do basically 1 button special moves. If you press left, down, or right, or neutral. So you have access to 4 basic 1 button specials plus a direction. Right. But with as you notice, there's 3 attack buttons. Now you don't have access to all 6, 3 punches and 3 kicks. You only have access to 3. So depending on what character you use, they're only going to have 3 standing attacks and 3 crouching attacks. It might be a punch, it might be a kick, right? So now there's like downside to modern controls. On top of that, there's also an assist button which you can hold down, and if you press light, medium, or heavy attack buttons, they'll do 3 different auto combos for you as well. And then for like drive impact and drive parry and all of that, there's macro buttons for the rest of the controller. But basically, it's a more accessible options for players to jump in. But of course, if it falls into the wrong hands, bad things might happen.
So with modern controls, when you're using the assist button, if you want to continue and get the auto combo, you have to keep mashing the corresponding button while you're holding assist. But you're not actually forced to do this. And we can see in a lot of cases that the first normal attack that you get from assist combos is actually something that you cannot get otherwise by pressing light, medium, and heavy. So this is kind of a way that you have with modern controls to circumvent the problem of not having access to all of your normals and get some unique normals this way.
Right, kind of like cheat the system, if you will, you know?
Yeah. Now, I guess it's worth mentioning that if you do this standing and if you do this crouching, you get the same exact normal. Like the assist combos don't change based on your standing or crouching, and it doesn't seem to work in the air either. So you cannot quite get, like every normal, but you can get some extras.
Okay, interesting.
In some cases, the normal that you get from the assist combo is something that you can just normally have access to. Like for example, with Guile, his heavy assist combo starts with forward heavy punch. But Guile can just do forward heavy punch naturally with modern controls. It's one of his unique normals.
Okay.
However, modern control characters have a slightly different move list than classic control characters and don't have naturally access to all of the unique normals. So, for example, Guile cannot do his upside down kick in modern controls, and he cannot cheat that in by using the assist combo, for example. So he's just completely missing that normal.
Right, because upside down kick is forward heavy kick, right?
Right. So and when he does forward heavy, he gets forward heavy punch instead, which is
right, because you can't have both. That makes sense. Okay.
And there's other examples of things like these. Like for example, for Guile again, his crouching heavy is a sweep, but there's no assist combo that gives him his crouching heavy punch, so he has no access to that, and it's one of his main N-tiers that are not flash kick.
So he doesn't get his crouching heavy punch?
Yeah, that's right.
It's kind of weird. Because, like, basically, Capcom chooses what they felt would be the most important if they had to choose one of the two. Wouldn't you think his Is crouching heavy punch anti-air be more important than his sweep? Maybe. I
guess.
know.
I guess they
weird.
wanted to you to use flash kick instead. I suppose that's really it.
That's wild. Okay.
It's interesting because he also doesn't have access to some of his other command normals. He cannot do his down 4 heavy kick, and he cannot do his overhead. However, Guile has target combos that lead into both of these, and with modern controls, you can do the target combos. So you can do, for example, crouching medium kick overhead. Yeah, that's available in modern controls. But if you want to do the overhead raw, you cannot.
Man, it sounds surprisingly complicated here for you know, an easy mode layout. That's interesting. Yeah.
I think it's because we're looking at it in a very, you know, competitive mindset, right? Where you want to have access to everything, you know, at a moment's notice, right? But this is mostly meant for people to just get accustomed to the game and just have tools to play. So that's probably what it is for.
Right.
So I guess the takeaway from this is that most characters will just be missing normals. You won't be able to do everything.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge trade-off, a huge one. Not having access to all your buttons is big, and command normals, especially if you have characters that have many command normals, because it would be a lot of like input overlap, you know. And
in some cases, the missing normals, I don't know, I think they're pretty funny. We tested Ken, and Ken cannot do his sweep.
Which what does he do? Crouching heavy punch?
He does his crouching heavy punch. Yeah.
They got it backwards. They're like, oh, that was supposed to be for Guile. They got it backwards. That's weird.
Depending on the character, obviously you can do a different amount of command normals, as we were mentioning. Guile has a lot of overlap, so you cannot do all of them. But Ken, for example, can do everything. His target combo, both the one from standing medium kick and the one from is standing medium punch, he can do both of them, because one of them is the assist combo and the other one you can just naturally do. But in the case of Ken, he's actually got problems with the specials, which I guess is the next thing we're gonna move on to.
Sure.
Right, so talking about the specials, as we mentioned before, you do this by pressing a direction and the special button at the same time. And not every special is available to characters in this way, because there's only 4 positions, right? There's 4 back, down, and neutral. And some characters have more than 4 special moves.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I guess another thing worth mentioning is that charge moves still require you to charge. You cannot do them without charge.
And you made sure and tested this and confirmed it, right? Because that's one of the conflicting things that we're hearing.
So, for example, for Guile, his back special is Sonic Boom, and his down special is Flash Kick. But if you don't have charge, you just get your neutral special, which is Sonic Blade.
Oh, so if you don't charge enough, you might accidentally do a Sonic Blade? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that's another disadvantage, right? Because you might get decked in the face if you do that.
Okay, so just to clarify this one more time. So if you want to do a Sonic Boom with modern controls with Guile, you simply hold back, and then after you have enough charge time, then you just press a special button, and it will come out.
That's correct. Yeah, and it's the same for Flash Kick.
If
you do down back, you get a Sonic Boom.
Okay, interesting.
I guess another thing worth mentioning is you can never get a perfect Sonic Boom or a perfect Flash Kick this way.
Really? On modern?
Yeah. Yeah, on modern you cannot do it by doing back and special or down and special.
That's a huge weakness.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, well, obviously Capcom thought of this, and the solution is that you can still do specials manually in modern controls by just doing the input plus light, medium, or heavy. So in the case of Guile, we were talking about, for example, the fact that you can never do a perfect Sonic Boom or a perfect Flash Kick, but if you do it manually by doing back, forward, and light, for example, you can.
Okay. Yeah, so I heard about this before. I personally didn't like that you still can do the special moves manually, because you're kind of like, once again, I'm thinking from a perspective of somebody who's already like good at the game and using this to exploit the system. If they want to have access to these moves, they can just do it manually, right? So that's interesting.
Right, and changing the version of the, you know, light, medium, heavy also changes the version of the special as well. So you can actually choose which version to do. So in the case of the Sonic Boom, would be the speed of the projectile. In the case of the Flash Kick, would be, you know, the distance the Flash Kick covers.
Well, I was gonna ask that too, Mir. When you do a special move with the special button, what strength of the special do you get?
It seems like it's a case-by-case basis based on the special move itself. So, like, it's not always the same strength. At first, we thought it was always heavy, but it doesn't seem like that's the case.
Really? Okay. So it's another thing that Capcom kind of chooses which one it does.
Yeah. I guess it's worth explaining now the fact that some characters, like Gal, don't have any problems with this input system because they only have three special moves now, right? And there's no overlap. But some characters like Ken, the way their inputs are laid out, there is overlap. So if you do Corsical forward light, are you going to get a fireball or are you going to get the Jinrai kicks, right? Because they're the same input.
Right.
So the way it works is that the game basically chooses a special for you, and that's the only one that you can get by doing that input. So in the case of Ken, if you do Corsical forward light, you get the Jinrai kicks, not the fireball. And if you do DP and light, or medium or heavy, you get the Shoryuken, but not the Dragon Lash kick.
Weird. So even if you can do the special moves manually, you still might not have access to all the special moves then.
Right. And I think this is the way they balance it, because some moves are, it's really important that you know which version you're doing. For example, Ken's Dragon Lash kick, which he doesn't have access to manually in Modern, the heavy version is plus on block, but the light version is punishable, so it's completely different. And
right. Oh, man, Mike Hong, the gears in my head are just turning right now, Amir. Like doing uppercuts, you need to have control the strength of your uppercut because they have different horizontal ranges and speeds that you need to change. And fireballs too, different speeds as well are really important. So this is a bigger weakness than I thought, Amir, now that you're telling me this, because not only do you not have access to all of your buttons, you don't have access to all your special moves either, even if you can do them manually, and your command normals. That is a pretty big weakness. Definitely. Yeah. That's huge, man.
Absolutely.
What? By the way, with Guile, you said down back plus special, he does a sonic boom. What if you press it? What if he goes down forward?
You get a flash kick.
You get a flash kick? Okay.
Yeah, you get a flash kick.
Okay, you actually tested that.
Yeah, I have.
Okay, cool.
Another thing about doing specials manually, and we're finally getting to one of the main problems that a lot of people had with modern controls, is that there's some special situations where you might want to do a manual input, like for example a crouching DP. You cannot do that on modern controls because the input is forward and special, which means that you have to stand up to do it.
Oh, see, yeah. So technically you can't go. Well, what if you go down forward? Like with like Ken, for example. What if you go down forward special? What does it give you?
It seems to give you the down special instead.
So it favors the down instead of the forward.
As far as we could tell, yes.
Whoa, that's a big deal. Yeah, not being able to do crouch uppercut is a big deal because you basically get more time before the opponent, hits you overhead because you're in a low profile state, right? So it's very strong. Right.
And I guess the other thing is doing crosscut input. You would have to do it, again with classic controls, basically.
Right. So the uppercut is forward and special. So if someone jumps over my head, do I have to manually press left and special, or the away and special to auto-correct the uppercut?
Yeah, basically the way it works in modern controls is that you always have to do it in the direction of where the opponent is. There's no leniency whatsoever. You cannot do forward, then wait a bit, then press special, and the DP comes the other way around. No, that doesn't work. You have to hold the direction at the same time. So if you screw up and you do the wrong direction for the special, you get a Dragon Lash kick on the wrong side. So that's basically death.
This is interesting. The thing is with Ed, for example, they had troubles kind of figure out how they want to do these uppercut specials without directions. And with Ed, you have to use 2 kicks, and that's his rising, right? Cycle rising. Yeah. And in order to balance that, because you could autocorrect, because it doesn't matter what direction they jump on, right? They had to make it slow, really slow, so you can't just use it like a crosscut. That was the way they balanced it. But now with modern controls, this is tough. You can't just design a special move just for modern controls because there's classic too. So with Ken, now that his uppercut is forward special, you have to consciously or deliberately choose the direction that you think they're going to be on. If there was no direction at all, let's say it was just neutral special, then the uppercut would always come out in the right direction, depending on the speed. Right. So now that it's 4, you have to consciously be like, okay, I think he's gonna cross me up, so I have to press away. So okay, that's good. That's good that they balanced it that way. I like it.
Right. I guess finally we can talk about supers. And the way you do supers with modern controls is that you do a direction, heavy, and the special button.
Okay.
So there's only 3 supers per character, and the first one you do it with neutral or forward, heavy and special. The other one is down, and the other one is back.
Okay.
Now, again, the problem with this is that you do the super with a single button press, which is obviously really, really strong, for example, for anti-airing or for buffers or, you know, all these sort of things. It's like just very easy to execute a complicated input. Right. But you lose out on basically choosing the version of which super you want to do. And a lot of supers in Street Fighter 6 have actually different properties based on the version.
Okay, you give me some examples?
Yeah, like for example, Gal's heavy Sonic Hurricane, I think, is the most obvious one, where it goes up on an angle instead of being on the ground, and you can use that as an anti-air, while the other ones don't work the same way.
Right, that's true.
But overall, this seems like the one that has the least weaknesses to me. I couldn't really figure out what else you cannot do with modern controls, so like doing one button supers is definitely gonna be one of the strongest features of modern controls.
Yeah, like if someone throws, you know, a fireball really close to you and your level 1 super is like invincible, you just press one button, it's like boom, you'll be able to punish things quite easily. It's basically like a one giant macro.
Alright, I guess we can move on to some of the concerns that people had about modern controls and how we can possibly, you know, debunk some of them.
Yeah.
So I guess the first obvious one that we already mentioned is the one button charge moves, or more specifically, the no charge moves. And as we mentioned before, you do have to charge to do charge moves. So that's, you know, a non-issue, I would say.
Yeah, people are scared of like Gal walking forward and doing sonic booms and wheeling you down to the corner. We don't have to worry about that, guys. So that is a big deal. Or of course, you know, Gal just walking forward and then flash kicking you when you jump. You will not be, you know, an unstoppable force bringing you to the corner. So yeah, okay, at least that's debunked now.
Okay, I guess the next one is doing anti-airs with a single press of a button, right? Obviously doing a DP immediately, it's a big strength because DPs are invulnerable.
Yes, I still think this sounds really strong.
Yeah, for the most part, this seems to be the case, but they do lose on some situations, like, for example, when you have to do a crosscut, right? As we were mentioning before, that is something that you cannot do on modern controls. You have to do the correct input on classic.
I wonder what would happen, Mir, if you wiggled. Like, you wiggled the stick and you mashed on special. I don't think that would get you an autocorrect DP on wake up, because you might accidentally do the other special move if you wiggle and you don't know what side they're on.
That's a distinct possibility, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I guess another thing that is, you know, worth thinking about, they're not yet in the game, but what about, you know, complicated inputs for special moves and supers, like Zangief's SPD, for example, a 360 motion, or a 720 for a super, or a Raging Demon.
Ooh, okay. Easy Demon.
Obviously, we have no idea if these moves are even gonna be in the game, right? Like, maybe the input is completely different in Street Fighter 6.
Yeah, Zangief having access to an instant 720 would sound very strong, and even having access to an instant demon would allow a lot of like Kara situations, you know, where like, for example, it might be a button that moves you forward a little bit, right? Puts the opponent into, you know, block stun, and then you can cancel from it quite easily with, like, you know, with the macro from modern controls. So that sounds strong, but that's something where, like, right now with the current cast, it's not an issue, but once these characters are revealed in the game, then we can see if it's a problem.
Right. And I guess I think in this situation, Capcom would probably want to put in some extra limitation, right? Because the reason why these moves have very complicated inputs is because they're really strong, and they're already threading the line with the DP, right? So
yeah,
I feel like something else would have to be put in place to make this less of an issue, at least. Well, I guess another thing is characters with dive kicks, and especially those that have very low height restrictions. It would be much easier for them to do a dive kick off the ground, right? Because they don't have to do a complicated tiger knee motion or anything like that.
Right, an instant dive kick. Yeah, they can do it like with 100% accuracy, the lowest height possible. Yeah, that does sound strong. Or even if like, you know, an instant air fireball, if once again for Akuma or something, that could be strong. Yeah.
Yeah, this seems powerful, and I guess we need to see the individual dive kick, you know, how powerful that is. Because if you get a situation where it's very easy to do it low to the ground and get like a plus one block situation, it might be very strong. But I guess it's worth remembering that we're not talking about these things in a vacuum. Obviously, if there's a character that has an easy dive kick, they might be missing a lot of normals, because that's the way Capcom is going to compensate for the fact that you have this in your kit, right?
Yeah.
So on one hand, it looks like all of these things that we're mentioning are serious concerns, but it's possible that they're just gonna give you half a character instead.
Yeah. Like, you know, we were obviously concerned about it, but we're trying to, you know, think this as thorough as we can, that I'm sure Capcom has as well.
And I guess one last thing that could be a concern is that with modern controls and the fact that you have such easy access to supers and specials, is that there's probably a bunch of option selects that people might come up with that could be effective with modern controls, but just impossible with classic because you don't have enough frames to do the inputs.
Right, exactly. I just, you know, named one example with the Akuma Raging Demon, like you carry cancel something, and there'll be like some kind of buffering with supers. You know, that's definitely something that's on the table. So it really comes down to a question of like, is it worth it? You know, getting those advantages over the weaknesses.
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious at this point that Capcom intentionally designed the modern inputs the way they are, so that they are an alternative system instead of being a replacement, right? They obviously don't want it to be just strictly better than classic controls, because of course they know that it would cause a lot of outrage, but also because it would be, you know, kind of unfair competition, right?
Right. They do want players to like compete in tournaments and use modern controls if that's what they prefer. But at the same time, me personally, I like the way Capcom has designed this so far, but I just don't want it. I'm not saying it's going to, but I don't want it to be a situation mirror where some of the problems that we're bringing up that could potentially happen, and Capcom wastes their time trying to balance these two controls rather than just the character itself. We don't want that to happen. It's just a waste of time.
You can clearly see that they've already thought plenty about this, right? Like, what do we give for an assist combo to the characters? What kind of normals do we give them in general, right?
Yeah.
And missing normals, as we mentioned before, is a really big deal, especially when in a competitive scenario, you really want to have all your tools on your hands at all times, right? And in some cases, again, not being able to change the version of the special is really limiting.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And I have to say, for like our limited testing, getting my head around how it was laid out, you know, like all the controls was really, really odd, to be honest. Like,
yeah,
for example,
I could imagine.
yeah, like for example, with Gal, you get a crouching normal by doing your medium assist, but you do that standing. It's really strange, and some of the buttons are not where you'd expect them to be because of this whole assist trickery, right?
Right, yeah. That does sound very odd. I would be very confused. It'd be hard to kind of relearn that control style, especially if you're just looking for an advantage. I think it would be strange.
Someone like a professional player could potentially train to get used to modern controls, but I think it would be just, I don't know, just very confusing, especially if you're also playing on classic controls. I feel like there'd be an issue with muscle memory.
All right, let's close up shop. And Mir, thanks a lot for spending your time to test this for us, to get some answers for us on modern controls. Guys, let us know in the comments below too what you think about modern controls now on the updated information. Of course, we'll probably do more testing when the beta arrives in less than a week now. So yeah, guys, thanks for joining us, and me and Mir will talk about more EGX stuff in the future. So take care, guys. Peace.
Bye-bye.